This episode is brought to you by reading the manual. If only I had done that and not wasted 3 hours of my life fighting with OBS.
This is Hot Drop, where we bring you premier PUBG analysis and the toastiest of drops. I'm Cody,
I'm Dano.
and let's get into it. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the Xbox patches number 4 and 5 that came out last week, along with the PC 1.0 update number 2 that came out last Wednesday. In those, we're going to talk about a lot of loot crate changes and the key and crate system that's kind of been working its way into the mainstream of the game that we've known for a while, along with the Xbox improvements that we've kind of seen slowly creeping in as they have multiple improvements throughout the weeks.
Yeah, we didn't want to leave our Xbox friends out, so we can kick it off with the patch notes for Xbox Game Preview patch number 4. And this had some gameplay optimization and other small bug fixes that we wanted to highlight really quick. So under gameplay, and this is something I mentioned in previous episodes, that they're changing the aim acceleration to make it more accessible for people who are using an Xbox controller. So the fix is that the aim acceleration can now be adjusted by players via an in-game option.
So what does that mean for the people that are actually playing the game? They get to choose how quickly they snap to the next person?
Yeah, so if you think of the mouse kind of sensitivity, it's sort of like that. With a thumbstick, though, as you push it forward, say if you take your thumbstick and you push it all the way to the top as far as you can go forward, it'll slowly ramp up the acceleration and then make you, sort of snap upwards versus slowly drift your aim upwards. So I think that's what they're talking about here, is how when you push the thumbstick, it's just the sensitivity and acceleration around that versus just overall sensitivity for a mouse. It's sort of a different input method, so I think there's sort of like a smoothing action as you ramp up the speed at which you push that thumbstick. Does that make sense?
Cool. Yep, makes total sense.
The next bullet is that the player weapon damage has been increased against vehicles. So they will continue to monitor player feedback and telemetry. That's an interesting word. And make further balancing adjustments as needed in further updates.
Wait, what?
So they increase the damage output against vehicles. So when you shoot a vehicle, it takes less bullets to blow it up.
Maybe that was an issue they were having on the Xbox version.
Which is weird because I think it's the same game.
Right.
And it seems kind of weird that those numbers would have been changed in the Xbox version. But they're monitoring that telemetry. So whatever that means. And they'll make further adjustments going forward. So I don't know. I would like to see a weapon like, I don't know, not like a grenade launcher, but some kind of weapon that you specifically use against vehicles. I think that would be a cool addition to the game.
Maybe if you found like some sort of claymore or something like that, where they're super rare, but you can set them up for ambushes like bridges and choke points and things like that. I think that would be actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, like tripwires or things like that for entering and exiting houses.
But they're incredibly rare, so like every once in a while you'll get caught up by a claymore or something like that.
Yeah, maybe it's like a loot crate or airdrop weapon.
That'd be awesome.
But like a very low chance of that. I don't know.
Anyway, first-person solo matchmaking queue will be made available for the North American, European, and Oceanic servers, and they're going to open up other modes within those regions as time goes by, which is pretty cool because you want the game to be as accessible as possible in all game modes, so that's pretty exciting for them.
Yeah, before they were left out, and I'm glad to see that they're now, up with the times here. We want everyone to have the same experience, so it's just a matter of them building the infrastructure, getting the servers ready, making sure that they have the capacity to host that many people, and just everyone can now play all the game modes in all the regions. So I think there's some that probably we're missing, and I don't know what is available in every region, but it looks like they're starting to, and if not, wrapping up the process of rolling it out to everyone in all areas.
Yep.
They fixed an issue that caused indoor lighting and shadows to appear too dark and bluish. And
that's good.
Yeah, that's great. And then also analog stick acceleration added while exiting the plane while parachuting. And this
so I assume that just means like when we're hitting W and pointing our mouse all the way down to go faster, they've added that.
Yeah, so I think this is actually referring to the aim acceleration in that first bullet where you have the ability to adjust that. I don't know what it was before. I would like to hear from our Xbox players out there. But it sounds like they are just tweaking the movement and tweaking how the thumbsticks register movement.
Perfect. Moving on to optimization. They've enhanced PhysX performance enhancements. Server SPF FPS has been slightly increased. Client FPS slightly increased, and some VFX received slight optimizations. Not that many though.
Just
Don't get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, and this is the complaint that a lot of Xbox players have had over the course of the past few weeks. Just that FPS is super low, and optimization is just not really there yet. And I think it's something to note and something to mention is that this game, it's almost like they started over again, you know? So it's not like they launched 1.0 on Xbox. It's almost as if they've started over because Xbox is officially the game preview, and so it's basically like they're in beta again. So we've spent all this time in beta for PC and finally got the official quote-unquote 1.0 launch. And now on Xbox, they're getting a lot of those features, but Xbox doesn't have the new map yet, as far as I know. And it also doesn't have all of the features that PC has. So it's almost like they're starting back again in beta for Xbox. And it's going to be, a couple months to build up the game to the state where it's in PC right now.
We've been given an option to toggle music on and off, which I guess is pretty cool if you like or dislike music. And the bug fixes are they address the number of known crashes, not the unknown ones. Again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. And fix the UI issue that occurred when multiple players attempted to loot from the same source. That still happens in the PC game, so I don't really know what they could have fixed, why they haven't fixed it here, unless they just don't care.
Yeah, I would like to know what that UI issue was. But there is some definite slowdowns when you're trying to loot multiple boxes at once. It's probably a different issue, but things get kind of wonky when there's a lot of loot boxes around and a bunch of people are looting the same things. Probably has to deal with that. Moving on to Xbox Game Preview Patch Notes number 5. Again, this one came out in Friday of the last week, which would be the 12th. Under gameplay, they say that pistols have been removed from Y button's weapon rotation and grouped with melee weapon. And this is funny because I actually pronounced melee, pronounced it melee a whole bunch of times because it looks like it should be pronounced melee, but so, whatever, get off me. So they're still tweaking these controller layouts. Players can now equip pistols by pressing up on the D-pad. Sounds great in practice, but as soon as you get an AR, as soon as you get a shotgun or a sniper rifle, you're never really going to go back to your pistol. But it's there if you want a quick switch to it.
Yep. I feel like the only time that you'd ever really want to switch back to your pistol is if you had like a silenced Glock or something like that. That's the only time I've ever really brought my pistol back out.
Yeah, that full auto up close is pretty nice. Yeah, I could see if you're using like a sniper rifle and then maybe a shotgun and you don't have full auto capabilities, like that would be a perfect opportunity to pull it out.
Yep. On to optimization, they continued improvements related to rubber banding. Why they laid it down as rubber banding in this and not in the PC version.
We're calling it rubber banding now.
I am going to write a strongly worded letter to Bluehole. And like I said, it's going to be strongly worded. Big, bold letters. I don't know how mean it'll be. I don't know how nice it'll be.
You might even change the font up a couple times. Underline some things. Maybe
Red
some
pen.
Colors. Maybe some circa 1995 word art. The rainbow colors.
They also enhance server performance while parachuting.
I love my server performance. Added a new controller preset to options menu. So type B, now preset, now supports holding left trigger to aim down sights and holding left bumper to use third-person perspective aim sight. And finally, controller guide has been updated to include the new controller preset. And again, just they're figuring out what the hell controls are the best to use on an Xbox controller. I imagine this is pretty tough to use. There's nothing like a keyboard and mouse, so that's my bias coming out. But
no, I mean honestly, there are certain games that I like to play with my PlayStation controller on, but there are certain games that I can't even imagine not using keyboard and a mouse, as this is one of them. So
yeah,
and this is the first game that I ever played with a keyboard and mouse, and I couldn't imagine any other way.
Yeah. And I think some games that are shooters play pretty well on PlayStation, Xbox. I'm talking about like Grand Theft Auto. But this kind of game where you need that pinpoint accuracy, it's going to be pretty hard to use a controller. So they're working on it. They're trying to get it better for the players. This is actually something that one of our viewers brought up, and we're going to bounce into his comments a little bit later. His or her comments. I don't want to be
Their comments.
Their comments. And we want to talk about some of the differences between Xbox and PC and some of the complaints the Xbox players have. So we'll roll into that right after these bug fixes. Cody, take it away.
Right after these messages. They fixed an issue where players repositioned out of Battleground after certain actions and remained invulnerable until the end of the match. That sounds awesome, and I want it.
Please add.
Additional memory and non-memory related crash fixes. Okay. And they fixed the inability to join duo or squad through invites outside of game.
Okay.
Alrighty. Bug fixes. Brought to you by Clorox.
And the last section, known issues to be addressed next patch. Dropping objects causes the player to switch weapons. That seems like a problem. And the user is unable to switch grenade types when tapping right on the D-pad. I don't know what the button is to switch grenade types otherwise, but you cannot do that when tapping right on the D-pad.
Again, brought to you by Clorox.
All right, let's before we bounce into the PC update. I've used bounce twice, and that's kind of weird. But before we move into that, let's talk about some of the comments that one of our awesome viewers had about PUBG on Xbox versus PUBG on PC.
What I thought was really great about this, first of all, is that we asked for your responses, got some, and it's been really helpful. And Dan and I, right when that comment came up, talked about it and read it over a few times. So thank you for whoever wrote that. We really appreciate your input here, and it's been really helpful to us.
Yes. So I want to read off these comments that this person had. This is by a YouTube account by the name of The Chocolate Cow. The first comment they have is, anyone not playing with an Xbox One X is immediately at a disadvantage, not necessarily avoidable. I understand hardware specs, and if you want to be the best, you've got to have the best, but that promotes pay to win at a $500 price tag. So what they're talking about here is that the Xbox One X, which recently came out, is a much more powerful machine than the regular Xbox One, and with that greater machine becomes greater hardware, which means greater FPS. And you're obviously at an advantage if you have higher FPS.
So how does that, do you think, equate to the idea of somebody owning a much better computer than I would own?
Same thing.
Is that substantially different, though, with an Xbox One to an Xbox One X? Whereas yours might be, I don't know, let's say 50% more powerful than my computer. Is that significantly more when it comes to those two Xboxes? Xbox I.
Yeah, so I think the difference is that if you buy a game on console, you're sort of expecting that the performance is going to be perfect, right?
Yep.
So if you have one console that is more powerful than the other, you'd still expect the game to run just about the same. I think this comes down to like what that new console can give you, I guess. Because if you think back to when they announced the Xbox One X, I think they were really pushing just the fact that you get 4K with it, and you get things like greater graphics, but not necessarily smoother performance. So I think it's fair to be upset if you have an Xbox One and your frames per second just aren't that great compared to someone who has an Xbox One X. I think you have a right to be upset about that. But I think it's also there on PC. I mean, the same problem is there on PC. If people who can afford a larger, more powerful computer are going to have a better experience playing the game. There's no doubt about that. But I think with console, it's like not something you expect to have a lot of variation in, if that makes sense. Like if you buy a console, like everyone has the same hardware, you expect everyone to have the same experience. Yep. And it's sort of more upsetting if you have a console versus if you have a PC, because you know that the sky's the limit when it comes to building a powerful computer. Like the more money you put in, the better the experience is going to be.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So why don't you take his number 2 point?
Yeah, number 2 says The Chocolate Cow says anyone playing with the Xbox Elite controller is at an extreme advantage because there are no localized button layouts or mapping to support regular controllers. Also, PUBG Xbox has no way of mapping controls in game yet. Thus, they are stuck with that terrible default configuration, which we talk about. It seems as though in both of these patches, they are adding that to make it more universal for everybody else. So you can map them differently, or you can make them work better for the majority of people.
Right. Yeah, this is the stuff they're working on. They've got to figure out the best controller mapping and the easiest, most intuitive way to play the game with a controller.
Which is interesting to launch a game on the second and third biggest console available for anybody without having the controller really mapped perfectly yet.
Right. And I'd like to know the differences more between the Xbox Elite versus the regular controller. I think the Elite has things like bumper buttons underneath it, so there's more options for buttons and a different mapping.
And it's made better.
And it's just a better controller. So I don't think that you should have any kind of advantage. I think that should be something that's like a luxury item and a choice that you decide, I like the Elite versus the regular one more. I don't think you should be punished if you have a regular controller. But I think they are working on this, like you just said.
The third issue that the Chocolate Cow wrote about was that the game wasn't meant to run at such a low frame per second. And so a lot of people are averaging about 20 with a normal Xbox One. And the most recent update just made that dynamic lighting a thing. So the game actually looks a little bit better, but the frames per second isn't much resolved, I guess, at this point. And desync with the tick rate is really, really bad right now. And they've obviously tried to address rubber banding, but these things keep playing into each other. And when they start to snowball with each other as a group, it seems that the game is really getting pretty laggy for everybody, and it's just not fun.
Yeah, we're still seeing these problems on PC. Like, FPS has gotten better. Desync is still a massive issue. We talked to tick rate to death last week, and rubber banding is there. I mean, they're working on it. We're getting there, but yeah, it's a pain in the ass right now.
And even so, what we started to notice was like mid-game, all of a sudden, you would land in a town and kind of just be jumping around weirdly, and you're like, what is happening? Why is this happening now? There's nobody around us, and we're just from building to building. And so while things are getting better, you're finding new holes every time you play.
Yeah, and the intro, like the beginning of the games, when you finally parachute, hit the roof of a building, for example, go to pick up a gun, and there's just like nothing there. The weapons haven't spawned in yet. Like, that's almost the bigger problem for me.
I hate that so much.
Some people get lucky and something happens to spawn in, and they get it, and you're dead before you even get a chance to find a weapon, and then you die, and then on your death screen you like see a weapon spawn in next to you. It's like, what the hell, man?
So the best example I can give, and like what pisses me off about that, is if we are going to Picado and we're landing on the roof of the casino, and you see a weapon there, but it hasn't fully spawned in yet, so you have to run by and hope you can tab loot it before, and if not, you just keep running and you jump off the roof because you know that the guy behind you it was loaded in for them.
Yeah.
And that just pisses me off the most. You shouldn't have to play a game where you're kind of playing the system, if that makes sense.
I think that we can sort of relate this back to the difference in hardware. I know about a month ago, people were talking about if you had an SSD, your game is going to load in a lot faster. The buildings will load in a lot faster. And that's true. But we have this on top of the tick rate and desync problems. It's sort of like a one giant problem, right? So if you don't have an SSD, you're really disadvantaged. And if you do, you're still limited by the tick rate and the desync problems that are on the servers.
And so if you take all these problems, the last thing that the Chocolate Cow wrote was the game has introduced the number one problem with any game ever, which is the inability to adjust sensitivity and actually adjust without being mid-match and fighting. And so being able to kind of figure out what's going to work best for you when somebody has the upper hand when it comes to technology and you don't know whether or not it's just your settings, I think is a huge thing when it comes to this. And so they've launched something that is, like Dan said, all of a sudden in beta again. And we don't know exactly how to fix it, whether or not it's on our end or Bluehole's end. So
Yeah, and with sensitivity, there's a certain amount of sensitivity and adjustments you can do in the game, but I also think a lot of it's just muscle memory. I think if I jack my sensitivity way up, eventually it might take months, but I'll learn to live with it and I'll adapt to it. But you need to make sure the ability is there for the user to make those changes, and that might be what they're talking about, or they might be talking about adjusting sensitivity on the fly, perhaps. Like when you're in a fight and you want to switch to a sniper and you want a higher sensitivity when you're sniping versus when you're just using a regular rifle. Like I think that's a legitimate need. But it's also a new game, and you're going to take a little bit of time to get used to the movement and the aiming and the sensitivity of the controller versus the mouse and keyboard.
Right. So again, thank you to the Chocolate Cow for leaving your message on our YouTube channel. If you guys have any more thoughts about the Xbox edition of this game or the PC version of this game and how it relates to that, please leave us some comments, email us, tweet at us. Any feedback is welcome.
Absolutely. Let's roll into the PC updates. So this one came out last Wednesday, which to our dismay was one of our drop nights, and it was a pain to not be able to play on the live servers, but we were able to switch over to the test servers, and we had a really, really great stream.
Yeah, matchmaking was a little tough that night, but we made up for it with some good messing around.
Yeah. So when we stream, I think it's not about winning. It's more just having fun, enjoying the game, talking to you guys. If you want to see us try hard, we will at some point during the night. We might see that there's like 25 left and then decide to go hard, but overall we're just there to have a good time, and we hope that you guys are enjoying that kind of banter and interactivity that we want to bring to you guys.
Absolutely.
So that was a little off topic, but let's roll into PC updates. So they kick it off by talking about cheaters again, reinforcing that they're working on it. They're making it better internally as far as the tools that they're building to catch them. One of the things they're adding is the ability to report a suspected cheater when you're watching a replay. And this is huge because you might forget to report them in the game when you die, or you might not realize that they were cheating at the time until you go back and watch the replay. So to be able to report someone after the fact is extremely helpful in catching all of these people that want to ruin everyone's game.
Where this kind of came up is that recently in game, Dan and I have noticed that the kill screen says that I have been killed by a certain player. Let's say it says Lord Beardface has been killed by Dano. And then I go into the kill cam, and all of a sudden it says G600779 killed me instead. I find that to be a little bit weird, and maybe that's a new cheat. Maybe that's something where they've hacked it so you can't report the right person, or it's masking who was actually the one playing, something like that. But I think that thinking back to our conversation about cheaters, this was probably what it was. Like, they can't tell us exactly what they're doing because somebody's going to figure out what they are doing. And that happened a few times, didn't it? Like where somebody's username said Mark247, and then it was KGL400492. It's like, well,
yeah, I don't know if that's a bug in the game, if it's some kind of lag or something, or maybe it's some kind of cheat where they can impersonate another username and make it so they can't report, they don't get reported because they're reporting someone else. It's really weird. And I would like to see if other people are experiencing that. But it's very obvious when you have a name like that with a couple initials and like a really long string of numbers, and then it switches to like someone named John, right? Like it's like obviously this person didn't kill me, and I don't know what is causing this problem. But hopefully, being able to report people after the fact in a replay will combat this somehow.
Seems pretty great.
They also are talking about the new crate and key system. Do you want to jump into that?
Yeah, so what we had kind of talked about before, and we've gotten into it, was a lot of people hate this idea of the crate and key system, and that you're going to get a crate that you'll have to pay for. If you want to open it, you have to buy this key, and then you'll get other cooler things. And at first, there was kind of widespread panic that it was going to be a pay-to-win type of situation where you were going to get things that were going to help you improve your game and kind of have an advantage over others. Blue Hole Brendan Green has said many times, like, this is not that. It's aesthetic purposes only. You're only going to get clothes in here, whatever's going to make you look cooler. And let me tell you, they do. The things that are inside there are pretty cool or pretty funky. I personally like my sleeveless turtleneck that I had gotten. I think it brings out my shoulders and makes me look a little brawny. But I really like this actually because I get excited when I get a crate that's either the Desperado crate or the biker crate, because I know I'm never going to open them and I want to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
But for those people who really want to buy those keys and open it, good for them. And so now we've added another layer to this game that makes it more interesting to other people. And while you might get pissed that you don't get something that you can actually wear unless you buy it, sell it and buy whatever you want on the marketplace anyway, because right now they're selling for pretty hot money.
Oh yeah, I just unboxed. Well, I didn't unbox. I got a random crate. It turned out to be a Desperado crate, and I made $5 off of it. And I just put $5 into my Steam account, and I can use that to buy a game, or if I'm interested in buying skins, I can buy a different skin off the market instead of trying my luck at opening a crate. So I think it's a great system. I actually really enjoy the crate and key system because it makes it so you can get some money back. You can have that customization still. And if you're feeling lucky, you can still gamble. Like you can go for that super high dollar item and try to open that crate. Most often than not, you're going to end up with a crappy item. And the one thing that they did mention, which is super cool stuff, is that they talked about the drop rate, the chances of getting those super rare items. And this is something I've never seen before in any other game. They give you the chance of opening, for example, a cloth mask checkered is 0.01%. So when you open that
Could you
crate,
imagine?
0.01% chance of opening a cloth mask. So this is why things go for so much money. This is why items go for like $500 because you could open, thousands and thousands of crates and never get this. Each crate being $2.50 to open. It's nuts.
At some point, it becomes lottery-like numbers that you're gonna one get the right crate, because like those are a little bit. You're gonna find one if you buy a bunch in a week. You're gonna find one good crate, but then to open up that specific crate and find, I think the checkered cloth is the most expensive one.
So we've got 3 that are 0.01% chance, and these are all in the biker crate. The sleeveless biker jacket brown, sleeveless biker jacket black, and the cloth mask.
Yeah, the cloth mask, I think, is like you have better chances of winning the lottery than you do to get this thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, people say, oh, the system's rigged, but like the fact that they actually give you the percentages is something new. Like Counter-Strike doesn't do that. So to open up a knife in Counter-Strike is probably very similar to these numbers, 0.01%. And even then, you can open up a really crappy knife and it's only worth like $25. But some of these items, because the game is so new and these crates are so new, you're going to see astronomical prices for these things. Let me check real quick. I want to see what the price of a cloth mask checkered is on Steam.
If many people have actually found it.
Yeah, that's true. But I do really enjoy the customization. And the one thing that PlayerUnknown said is that there won't be stuff in the crates that are camouflage that give you an advantage. There won't be ghillie suits in the crates. So that's really good to know. Because those things, then it becomes pay to win. And we don't want that to happen.
And like, the luck of the draw with certain things. Like I like to wear my padded jacket because it's a lighter color and it's going to help me blend into other things. But like, that's not quite the same thing as a ghillie suit.
Yeah, right. So I just checked the Steam market. And so we've got, like I said, in the biker crate, cloth mask checkered, 0.01% chance of opening these. And also, this is like at this point that we're recording, this is like a $7 lottery ticket. Because if you think about buying the crate, it's $5, and then a key is $2.50. There's a little bit of variation there. So you're paying $7.50 for a 0.01% chance of opening an item worth, at this point in time, there are 2 on the market listed at starting at $872.
Dear God.
In the Desperado crate, there is a cloth mask, leopard, but there's a 0.16% chance of opening that one versus 0.01. So this one you'd think would be probably not worth as much. But again, supply and demand comes in here. The cloth mask leopard looks a little bit cooler. Those start at $1,650, and there's 2 of them currently for sale.
Unbelievable.
So if you click into that listing, you can see the historical sales of these. So it doesn't look like many of these are coming up. I mean, the crate was available on January 11th, looks like, according to the Steam graph on the marketplace. The first one was sold on the 11th at 4 a.m. for $1,094. One sold for $697 a couple hours later. Another one for $1,500, $1,800, and now $1,650 is what they're going for.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, I mean, there's people out there with this kind of money, and like you might think this is insane, but there's people with money that you don't even understand, like the common person like us can't even fathom. So there's people that will pay this kind of money for stuff. So those are the people that are buying up these crates at $5 a piece and then keys at $2.50 a piece. If you open 2 of those, that's $15. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, there's people that will pay this money, and game developers notice that, recognize it, and I think it's completely within their right to make a system like this if it funds the game and funds some more updates going forward.
And I think at this point they need to add something, because these sales are going to drop off at some point. A lot of people already own the game, and they're going to make their money off of these crates, and more power to them, because I want those updates. I want this game to be more optimized. I want more maps. I want more weapons. I want more skins. I want it all.
Yep.
Yeah. I want it all.
Hell yeah, dude.
And I want it now.
Hire more devs, please. Please and thank you. Okay, so I think we can move on from crates and keys and talk about some of the updates, some of the patch notes.
Let's do it.
World is the category. One bullet here. They added more objects around La Bendita on Miramar to increase the amount of cover.
Yeah, that makes sense. La Bendita was pretty isolated, and I think that the crater that was there kind of stopped people from really wanting to travel through, near, or around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a popular spot to drop. Personally, I don't really like it. I think there's a lot going on. It's almost like there's too much cover, but it's like super isolated in that one area around the plane. But as soon as you leave that area, you're just wide open, like the side of that hill, and that crater is just
essentially it's a death trap.
Yeah,
you're surrounded
completely
on any side, and there's no reason to get in there if you know that other people are around you.
Totally. Yeah, so they're tweaking that area of the map, and I think it's important to think about how they are continuing to update the map. They didn't release it and say it's done and we're good, enjoy, we're out of here. Like they're in it to make sure this map gets perfect, I think. Mm-hmm. Erangel hasn't been updated in a little while, but they did update that map multiple times too throughout the course of early access. So they're doing the same with Miramar.
Yep. Moving on to gameplay, they reduced the visible distance when parachuting down in order to optimize the server and client performance at the early phases of the game. I think this is an effort to stop rubber banding or glitching to the point where you are unable to see buildings well, that Play-Doh effect or anything like that. One negative thing that I did think about this is being able to spot vehicles, especially in Miramar where they are more sparse. That's half of our gameplay sometimes, I'd say, is, all right, let's spot a vehicle and everybody head to it. But now if you're not going to see it until you are lower, you're not going to be able to find that, and that's going to screw with your gameplay a little bit. And I noticed it twice, and that was really it. But being able to search for a vehicle is a big thing in this game.
Yeah, especially in Miramar, because they have so many other vehicle models that are the broken vehicles, that the ones that are player accessible are really hard to locate. So if you're changing this so that it's even harder to see them from a distance, like, I'm not a huge fan of that change, but we'll see how much optimization it gets us. If it makes a big difference, then it's probably worth it.
On Miramar, I think it's a big problem. On Erangel, there are a lot of vehicles you're going to find eventually, but the biggest struggle with Miramar is not being able to find a vehicle when you want one, and running down a road for a long time to find something in those piles of trash that look like buggies, and that's going to make it. It's going to make it really difficult moving forward, I think.
Yeah. Yep. And this is just when parachuting down. So when we're talking about early game and your strategy, like you said, find a vehicle, get to a safe spot, it's going to be a little bit harder. Moving on to items. So they changed the design of the energy drink. I bet someone from Red Bull phoned him up and said,
Don't
product
do
placement. What are you doing?
Please don't do that.
Yeah. So they changed it. It looks the same shape, similar to the same shape. I think it's a little bit wider. It's like a fatter can, silver, a little bit more silver. Not
It's like
completely
it's
obviously
like
a Red
a
Bull.
man holding a thumb up. It's like an old Russian beer is what I get a
Yeah.
feel for. It's like
Yeah.
a shirtless guy holding his thumb up. Like, yeah, it's 30 degrees here, but drink this, you'll feel better.
Yeah. It'll take a few more bullets. It's good for you. Do you want to do UI UX?
Sure. Adjusted the squad team colors, players 1 through 4, to better reflect call out names yellow, orange, blue, and green. And they adjusted those to be more consistent between colorblind options, which is, something I'm glad they caught that. I'm glad they went, you know what, people are colorblind to these colors. Let's make this more clear so that people will know. And they added a function where players can select more detailed criteria for the cheating category. So you get to choose something more specific than just cheating, teaming, and something else, which I think is really nice.
Counter-Strike does this. You can say, I'm reporting this person because I suspect they are wall hacking, for example, like seeing through walls. And this, I think, will help people if they do continue to ban people manually. And if there's people over at Bluehole that go in and watch replays and stuff, this kind of helps it, I think, because they can look for those criteria instead of just saying, okay, this person is hacking. And then the person who's reviewing the VOD has to sit there and think, okay, well, what am I looking for? It's just helpful to have more information about what the suspected player is doing.
And moving forward, it's going to make it easier for them to identify things aren't. So if somebody says they're speed hacking, they go, nope, they're not, but this is what they are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally.
Instead of starting from scratch every single time.
Yep. I'll grab replays here. That's the next category. While the player's nameplate is on, H key, now you can check the current weapon of that player by pressing the G key. This is in the replay mode, remember. Added the report button to the replay, and this is something we talked about at length. A report button pops up when pressing right mouse button on the player list. This is the tab key. While observing/following mode, report button appears on the timeline, which is the J key. They added a care package icon, changing effect according to the status. The icon will be different when the care package is falling and looted by other players. Adjusted the replay system so that now a player can watch the replay without extra delay in the following cases. Solo mode, when the player won the match, and when all teams are eliminated. And this was implemented because people were dying and then immediately watching the replay and then calling out to their teammates where enemies were. So they've updated that, so there's a bit of a delay. But if you are playing in solo, you can immediately check the replay and you don't have to wait for it to load.
That's pretty great, especially because that's essentially stream sniping, and I think that's douchey.
Completely. Agreed.
Moving on to bug fixes. Grab your bug be gone or raid, and let's get into it.
Featured by Clorox. Sponsored by Clorox.
They fixed an issue where when a player lands on the plane, the position of the character teleports intermittently. I really don't know what that means. They also
I don't know either.
I feel like we're moving on to the next one. They fixed the issue where the character animation is frozen when rejoining after a crash. That's true. People are frozen, they're stuck, and they go, I don't know what to do. And we keep going, hit alt, and they go, I am. It's not working.
Yep.
They fixed an issue where the red zone disappears instantly after it's formed. We've seen that a couple of times. Not that I'm complaining, but we were in the middle of that red circle, and then it goes away. They fixed an issue where some vehicles spawned on Miramar are stuck to an object and unable to move, like the motorcycles and the buggies. We do have a clip of the buggy that hopefully we will post into this video for those of you watching on YouTube of Admiral Zakbar getting into a buggy that is stuck and it immediately blows up on him.
Love it. It was so funny.
They fixed an issue where a player sometimes couldn't pass through a door even though it was open. Yes, and then sometimes that door would close when they would back up. Yeah. They fixed an issue where the mouse cursor would disappear on a replay map. When replay and death cam were played, the crosshair was bouncing. We've seen that many times. Where falling speed meter text was showing abnormally in Portuguese, for those of you who play the game in Portuguese. And the parachute movement speed issue, which I don't know exactly what that means, but apparently there was an issue with the, I would assume, going slower than you would like it to.
Yeah, I don't know what this one was. There's been a lot of tweaks recently to parachuting, specifically distance you can parachute. I think the humping method doesn't work as well. That's
No.
just what we call it. But when you swing your character back and forward and try to get more distance out of your parachute, I think they nerfed that a little bit. Not a big fan, actually. I really liked how we were able to jump pretty far out of the plane. But yes, movement speed issue. I don't know what this is talking about. New contents. Added 2 new crates. We talked about these, the Biker Crate and the Desperado Crate. Currently, if you are lucky enough to grab one of those in-game, and again, these are randomly generated when you click that Receive Crate button. The Desperado Crate currently going for $4.86, and the Biker Crate currently going for $1.98. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. It must be some kind of supply and demand thing with the biker items. Maybe people just don't really want those as much.
I feel like I've seen a lot more of the biker items. Plus, they have a much higher spawn rate for the top end. Desperado ones start at 8%, and the biker items start at 15%.
That would do it. Yeah, there's actually a lot of repeats here too. In the Biker Crate, you've got the gas mask half, which you've been able to get since day 1 in this game, like for free, which is kind of weird. I don't really like that so much. I'd rather have an option of getting a skin that I've never seen before. They've recycled some of these things, like Beanie Gray, 4.5% chance. And these are things that aren't even the most easy to obtain. So like those are 4.5 versus long sleeve t-shirt red, which is 15%. So if you open a biker item, a biker crate, you're most likely going to get something like the t-shirt red, long sleeve, school shoes brown, 15%, and then a couple different t-shirts at 10%. So it's weird how gas mask half is not a very popular, like it's not the most common item. It's
I mean, I have
like a
2
mid-range
great
one.
beanies. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, so I think, okay, hot tip for those investors out there. If you have these, just hang on to them for a little while, because their price is going to go up.
I mean, I've still got my Gamescom crates, so
Yeah, same here.
I'm not letting those bad Johnnies go.
Yeah. So yeah, they showed the drop rates of all of the items in the crates. I talked about this before. Right now, the new crates have a 40% drop rate, and the previous ones, like the Wanderer and Survivor crates that we've been getting for the past couple months, those have a 10% drop rate, which means that when you click that Receive Crate button, there's a 40% chance you'll get one of the newer crates, and a 10% chance that you'll get one of the older ones.
So hope to God they're the Desperado ones.
Yeah.
Cash out.
Right. Yep. I did that just now and was able to make nice $5 off of it. So I am not complaining.
Nope.
But that's about it for PC update. PC 1.0 update number 2.
If you guys have been seeing issues that weren't listed in any of these patches for either the Xbox or the PC, please let us know in the comments below or email us at hotdroppodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. And also don't even just email us, like email Bluehole. Go to their official forums, report those bugs, because this is how stuff gets fixed. We'd love to hear about it because we would be able to talk about those things. But if you find something, this game, they've acknowledged and everyone knows it's not done. So if you find something, report it to them and hopefully it'll get fixed in the next patch.
Yeah, totes my goats.
So I think that's about it. That's rounds out about another 40 minutes of Hot Drop. A lot of big things coming up. We wanted to cover the Xbox stuff earlier today because we got some comments from some of our viewers that they are Xbox players, and we don't want to leave those people out. I think it also gives us some insight about what they are working on in the game, and maybe some Xbox things will be applied to PC and vice versa. And we like to see the differences between those two platforms.
Yeah, absolutely we do. And I think that over time we're going to be able to see those two kind of culminate into a very similar game to each other. But right now they seem pretty far apart in terms of playability.
Yeah. I'm pretty disappointed to see that people are feeling like they have to fork over $500 for an Xbox One X, and that will give them better performance and, acceptable performance, not even like great performance, like acceptable performance. It shouldn't be a pay to win situation. It's kind of a bummer to see that, but they're working on it. And again, it's in beta again, like we started out in beta, we made it to 1.0, and now we're back in beta for Xbox. So it's a journey.
Xbox players, we feel your pain. We're here for you. New episodes every Tuesday. Drop nights on Twitch every Sunday and Wednesday from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern. That's Hot Drop Podcast on Twitch.
Yeah, and I want to announce officially we have a website. www.thisishotdrop.com. We have all of our season 2 episodes up there, and we are in the process right now of getting this show approved and on iTunes, and also all of your other podcast apps and platforms, things like Stitcher, TuneIn. All of these places should have our Hot Drop show available very soon. Even possibly by the time you hear this. We're recording this on Sunday night, but not releasing it till Tuesday, so we might be available by then. So check out your local happy podcast provider, and hopefully you'll see us on there. It's pretty cool. I feel like we're legit now.
Yeah, me too. If you guys are enjoying this, please like and subscribe. If not, that's cool too. Until then, we'll see you in game.